South Africa has just been hit by a political and economic earthquake. The United States has officially imposed a 30% tariff on South African exports, threatening over 100,000 jobs and sending the rand into a freefall. At the heart of this crisis is a broken trade deal, rising geopolitical tensions, and a government caught flat-footed. President Donald Trump's return to power has reignited a diplomatic standoff with Pretoria, and now the cost is being paid by ordinary citizens. With the economy already struggling, service delivery collapsing, and unemployment at record highs, this tariff is more than just a tax, it's a direct attack on South Africa's economic stability. Ramaphosa's administration is scrambling, opposition parties are furious, and the people are demanding answers. This is not just policy, it's a political war. South Africa has just been blindsided. A 30% tariff imposed by the United States has sent economic shockwaves through the country, and the fallout could be catastrophic. At the center of it all is a collapsing trade relationship, rising political tensions, and a government scrambling to contain the damage. This is more than just economics, it's political warfare. And the people who will pay the price? Ordinary South Africans. The announcement came swiftly and with brutal finality. After months of diplomatic back and forth, the United States finally made good on its threat. From August 1st, all qualifying South African goods entering the American market will be slapped with a crushing 30% tariff. Wine, cars, citrus, steel, it doesn't matter. The message from Washington is clear: either play by our rules or get out of the game. And President Donald Trump, back in power and bolder than ever, is making sure everyone hears it loud and clear. This decision didn't come out of nowhere. For weeks, U.S. trade officials had been signaling impatience with South Africa. They cited repeated policy disagreements, South Africa's stance on Israel and Gaza, alleged human rights inconsistencies, and more recently, controversial land reform legislation. Behind the scenes, the Americans warned that South Africa was no longer a reliable partner and that punitive measures were on the table. Now, those threats have turned into a full-blown economic reality. President Cyril Ramaphosa's administration has tried to downplay the situation. But the markets are not buying it. Within hours of the tariff announcement, the South African rand fell to its lowest point in over 2 months. Exporters are panicking. Thousands of businesses, especially in agriculture and manufacturing, are bracing for mass layoffs. Some industry groups estimate that over 100,000 jobs are now at immediate risk. That's not just a statistic, that's 100,000 families staring at financial ruin, all because of a foreign policy blunder that could have been avoided. And make no mistake, this is political. Donald Trump has long viewed South Africa with suspicion. During his previous term, he accused the government of land grabs and failing to protect property rights. He questioned the value of AGOA, the African Growth and Opportunity Act, that gave SA preferential trade access. Now back in office, he's delivering on those doubts with full force. Trump doesn't just want compliance, he wants control. And in his eyes, South Africa has chosen to stand on the wrong side of American interests. The timing couldn't be worse. South Africa is still reeling from the post-election turbulence, a fragile government of national unity struggling to find its footing, and an economy teetering on the edge of recession. Electricity supply is unstable, unemployment is sky-high, and service delivery protests are escalating. Now add a major trade war with the United States to the mix, and the picture becomes even darker. In response, Ramaphosa's cabinet held an emergency session. Trade Minister Ibrahim Patel announced a series of countermeasures aimed at cushioning the blow. These include establishing a support desk for affected exporters, reallocating trade routes toward BRICS partners, and fast-tracking relief funding through the Unemployment Insurance Fund. But analysts are skeptical. They argue that these are reactive measures, not solutions. The structural problem remains: South Africa is losing its credibility as a dependable international partner. Opposition parties are already sharpening their knives. The DA blames the ANC-led government for failing to maintain strategic alliances with key trading partners. They argue that South Africa's foreign policy has become too ideological, too unpredictable, and too detached from economic realities. The EFF, on the other hand, sees the tariffs as a consequence of neo-imperial bullying by the West, and calls for a complete decoupling from Western trade systems. The ANC is caught between these two extremes, and neither path offers a quick fix. Even inside the GNU, cracks are showing. Some coalition partners reportedly warned Ramaphosa weeks ago that escalating tensions with the US would provoke backlash. Their advice was ignored. Now, they're demanding accountability. They want answers. And the people watching at home, the unemployed, the underpaid, the overtaxed, are losing faith by the day. How can a country with this many natural resources, this much human potential, continue to spiral downward? The answer is becoming clearer: poor leadership, reactive governance, and weak diplomacy. On social media, South Africans are venting their outrage. Hashtags like #TariffTsunami and #Ramaphosa must act are trending. Some are calling for mass protests. Others are urging a complete overhaul of the government's trade and foreign policy teams. Memes comparing Ramaphosa to a deer caught in headlights are circulating fast. The narrative is slipping away from the presidency, and the opposition knows it. Meanwhile, the United States remains unmoved. In a White House press briefing, Trump's Trade Secretary said South Africa must demonstrate tangible reforms before the tariffs will be reconsidered. When pressed on what that means, he referenced South Africa's position on global conflicts, its domestic labor laws, and what he called unfair economic practices rooted in ideology, not logic. These are heavy accusations, ones that echo throughout diplomatic and business circles globally. So where does this leave us? In uncharted waters. The US-South Africa relationship has never been this fragile. Trade has now become the weapon of choice, and the casualties will not be politicians, they will be workers, businesses, and everyday South Africans. This is not just about imports and exports. This is about sovereignty, leadership, and whether or not South Africa can weather an economic assault from the most powerful nation on earth. For SA Unfiltered, this is the kind of moment where truth matters more than ever. We are not here to sanitize the story. We are here to ask the questions the mainstream won't. Why did the government let it get this far? Who benefits from this chaos? And most importantly, what happens now? Because the next few weeks will be critical. Will Ramaphosa buckle under the pressure, or will he fight to rebuild trust with both international partners and his own people? Will the GNU survive this blow, or will internal rivalries tear it apart? Will South Africa's economy withstand the heat, or will it crumble under the combined weight of tariffs, inflation, and political indecision? You deserve answers. And as always, we'll be here to bring them to you, raw and unfiltered.